What I love about grants is that there's no cap on the amount of grants that you can receive. So you can go get $1 million in grants and you could go back and get another $1 million in grants. Megan has received $1.7 million in funding. Now, there's been several grants that she's received. She's received a $120,000 grant. She's received a $200,000 grant. I've seen people win grants for $500. I've seen people win grants for $500,000. It just depends on the opportunity and what's out there and what's available.
Hey business owners, what if I helped you get access to $50,000 in business funding for $1 a day? Would you be interested? Inside of my Credit Mastery community, you're going to be getting exclusive access to our in-depth training program that's worth tens of thousands of dollars to give you the exact strategies you need on how to restore your credit and on how to properly structure your business. You're also going to be getting access to a financial consultant with over a decade of experience in the funding space that'll help you reach your financial goals in half the time it would take if you were to do it on your own. And we're going to be giving you 2 coaching calls every week that'll give you the exact banks you need to go to get access to $50,000 to $100,000 in business funding. This is the same community that helped Pat get access to $50,000 in funding from Chase, helped Alvin get access to $8,000 in funding from Amex, helped Matt boost his personal credit score by 150 points, and helped Donna delete a bankruptcy from her credit report. So if you're interested, click the link above or below this video to join now, and we'll see you on the other side of success. Let's go, family.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Marvin Francois Show, your #1 source for all things business, finance, and investing. And today is a very special day because our guest today is a mother, a retired business banker, investor, entrepreneur, mentor, and business grant expert extraordinaire. To date, she's helped thousands of entrepreneurs across the country secure multiple 6 to 7 figures in debt-free funding, unlocking the capital they need to start, grow, and scale the business of their dreams. Whether she's breaking down the secrets of grant funding to aspiring entrepreneurs so they can secure free money for their businesses, or hosting live events that teach business owners how to position themselves as irresistible to lenders and investors, the value that this woman provides is exactly why her success in the space is not a coincidence, it's confirmation. And today, she's here to do more of the same. Ladies and gentlemen, from Nashville, Tennessee, I'm here with the one, the only, Jaquinta Prim, better known as Coach K. How are you, family?
I am great. That was amazing.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I have to do the best for the best. You understand?
Awesome. Thank you.
Listen, very, very happy to have you. I've been watching you from afar for some time now, and I think that this is going to be a really great conversation. Thank you for coming out, and happy to have you on the platform. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Well, I know I did a okay job introducing you, right? But nobody knows Coach K better than the woman herself. So for those who are unfamiliar, let's get them familiar. Who exactly is Coach K?
Coach K I am a business coach, educating entrepreneurs about opportunities to help them scale and grow their business. So a little bit of backstory, I was actually terminated from Wells Fargo for teaching this information. So I decided that I was just going to go out and just show Wells Fargo exactly who I am and why this information is powerful and why entrepreneurs and people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs should get access to funding and capital to scale and grow their business.
I love it. So let's go back to that time, right? Because there are individuals who are going to watch this who are familiar with you and the success you've amassed in this space up until this point. But you know, just as well as I do, that there was a lot that you had to go through to get to this point. So if I'm correct, it was 15 plus years ago, you were working as a banker in Wells Fargo, and you had your hand in a little bit of everything. You were in the private lending space and the business lending space. What did life for Coach K as the business banker look like at that point in time? Paint that picture for me.
So as in the business space or in the space of working for Wells Fargo, I thought I had it all figured out. And I thought that this was the journey that I was supposed to be on. So I went to school, graduated from Alabama A&M, but I graduated in political science and sociology, but figured out that I really didn't want to go to law school. So I just grew in love for finance and got hired on at Wells Fargo. You know, I'm thinking good job, good career. But working for a company and seeing myself in this space and helping this company make millions of dollars and only getting in return, you know, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. And now I'm like, I want more. I deserve more. There's more for me, and what else can I do? So, you know, I'm making it work. I'm buying, you know, purchased my first home in this space, but I figured out that this is not going to get me to the retirement space. This doesn't give me the luxury lifestyle that I want. This doesn't allow me to provide opportunity for my daughter that I just had. It doesn't allow me to pay for her private school education. Now I need another source of income. So I started a child care center as well. And with starting that child care center, made a whole lot of mistakes. But just being in that space was definitely the drive and the push that I needed to just get out of my comfort zone and do more.
I wanna dive deeper into your time working at Wells because your story, I'm sure, is very similar to the story of a lot of people who watch, where you kind of are following this traditional path, like, okay, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get the degree, I'm gonna get this job, and I'm gonna live happily ever after. And then you get to what is supposed to be the happily ever after, and it's like, I ain't really happy. Like, this ain't doing what it's supposed to do. You talked about being in the space at Wells where you're helping a corporation make all this money and they're giving you pennies on a dollar. Was there a specific moment during your tenure at Wells where you were just like, okay, enough is enough. We're gonna have to pivot. I got to do something else because this is not gonna be it for me.
There's several, but a lot of people are familiar with the Wells Fargo story. About how Wells Fargo got in trouble for forcing their employees to do like crazy sales goals.
I actually don't know the story.
Okay, so backstory is there is a situation where Wells Fargo, we had crazy sales goals, and they would push us or almost threaten to terminate us if we didn't meet the sales goals. Well, what happened was, in return, that the employees were doing things that were unethical to meet the standards so that they could keep their jobs. So a lot of times people would come in and they would only want a debit card, and they'll wake up and they'll have like 2 extra savings accounts that people were doing that worked for Wells Fargo. So it was a very draining time because you had all of this tension to meet these goals and meet these quotas. Now, I was lucky enough not to be one of the people who were practicing unethical activities, but it definitely gave me that drive that, hey, you got to go out there and get it. It taught me how to sell. It taught me how to convert. It gave me just a completely different training that I didn't have before. So, but I say that because there were situations where I had to go out and I had to network and I had to meet business owners and I had to bring business and revenue in. There was one particular situation where I brought in a client and we made this customer closed on several apartment deals, scaling well over, I want to say, maybe $10 million. And we closed on a big deal with this client. And in return, my VP, he comes over and he slips me this certificate or an envelope. And in the envelope, it's a certificate for me to go on the company's website and buy a T-shirt or a Wells Fargo that I can't even wear anymore because I don't work there. But I get to go on the company's website and buy a T-shirt or a hoodie that says Wells Fargo. That was my congratulations for sourcing and vetting a client, helping them make well over $10 million. And, well over because of interest and payments. And that was the turning point for me. Like, wait a minute, if I can go this hard for a company, if I can go out, find a client, bet that they have the assets and the net worth to be approved for $10 million or more, I can do this for me. So that was really the turning point for me. Like, wait a minute, there's more out there for me, and I just got to go get it.
I think first off, certificate for a T-shirt is crazy. Let's just, if I help you close a multi-million-dollar deal and you give me a T-shirt, I'm giving you hands. Like that's something. But I think for you, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And if that doesn't happen, maybe you stay there for another 10 plus years and you're just slaving away. What's interesting for me though, you talked about how, as you were explaining just the hardship of just, going through that season where they were pushing you guys to do all these unethical things, about seeing the silver lining in it all to where, you didn't view your time at Wells Fargo as a loss, but there were certain skills that you were able to gain from your time there that I'm sure have helped you to where you are now. Do you reflect on that often now to where it's just like, hey, I did spend a sizable amount of time there and I could play the game of, well, if I didn't work there all those years, maybe I could have did this? Or is it more so, well, no, because I worked there, it gave me a foundation to where now what I'm doing in business, it works hand in hand with everything I got from my time there. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. People ask me all the time if I regret my time there. And I used the time there to learn the strategy. It taught me about running a business. It taught me about, networking. It taught me about being pushed outside of my comfort zone, but most importantly, making connections with people from different genders and different races. And I can have a conversation with almost anybody from being in that space. But some of the best relationships that I made were in the Wells Fargo platform. One of my best friends right now, I tell the story all the time. He came into the bank one day. He has on a baseball cap and a raggedy shirt, and he has on a backpack, and he's like walking around. And we thought he was going to bomb the place. Like we really thought we really thought something was up. And as we talk to him, as we have a conversation, he slides over his ID, and he's like a multimillionaire, and he was just very private and very selective on who he wanted to do business with.
Right.
But from that day, we built a relationship, and I don't even work at Wells anymore. He doesn't bank at Wells anymore, and we are best friends. I can call him now for anything. So being in that space, I created some of the most amazing relationships and learned some amazing strategies that now I'm able to apply in my business. What I do now is I'm still a banker. I'm still uncovering needs. I'm still, finding opportunities to help entrepreneurs grow and scale. And a lot of those skills I learned from being in Wells Fargo.
I think that's amazing. And what's interesting is my specialty is in the funding space, and I talk a lot about working with banks. You've actually been on the other side of the envelope in that you've actually been a banker. One of the things we hear talked about a lot, especially in our community, is that it's harder for us, right, as Black people to be able to get access to financing and loans. Did you find that to be true during your experience working there, or was it something else?
I absolutely think that's true, but I think most of it comes from us not being educated on what's required to go into the bank. If you have all your ducks in a row, if you know what your credit profile should look like, if you know what you need walking to the bank, I'm not going to say it's almost impossible, but it's a little bit less. It's a little less challenging for them to decline you when you know what you need and you have everything in order for yourself. Most of the time, we go into the bank and we say, "Hey, I just need a loan, or I just need a credit card," and we don't know what we need. So if we educate ourselves on the opportunities that are out there and available for us, and now we're walking into the bank demanding what's required, it's a little bit less. It's hard for them to say no. Especially if you have that credit profile with the trade lines on there, or that, hey, I'm probably not going to get approved for this business loan, but I definitely can get this business credit card. So I think it's the education piece, and I think that's a big part of why I decided to start teaching this information, because people would come inside the bank and they would want $1 million loan and they don't even have their LLCs registered yet.
So then from there, what was that conversation? Because like you said, at one point in time, you're teaching, Wells Fargo terminates you. What was the conversation there? Because once again, it's not like you were a small fish that just came into there. You were responsible for helping the company generate millions and doing all these incredible things. You take it upon yourself to start educating people that aren't educated about this side of financing and funding. And Wells comes to you and they're like, "Hey, we not doing that here." Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Their exact word or exact verbiage was, because of the competitive nature of your business, you have two options. You can terminate your business and you can continue to work here, or you can go build your business and build your brand. And they gave me I think 7 days to decide. And if I was terminating the business, I had to dissolve the LLC online, and I had to write a statement showing that I was terminating it and send them the paper showing that I dissolved the LLC. And I'm like, yeah, no.
And then at that moment, you just knew it was time.
At that moment. And I think it was the push. I was very comfortable. I was very comfortable, very complacent. I knew the policies. I had my PTO down packed to where I was getting extra days off of, it was very a comfortable space.
Right.
And getting that, that I had people around me saying, hey, you don't leave sure money on the table, right? But nobody around me was an entrepreneur. So they didn't know the risk that, or the reward of being an entrepreneur and stepping out of your comfort zone. So it was the push that I needed to just go be great.
I love it. Let's go to 2018.
Okay.
This is post working at Wells. You decide to open up the child care center. This is Kids at Work in Huntsville, Alabama. Talk a little bit about what that time in your life looked like. What was the inspiration? You could have opened any business under the sun. Why a child care center?
So, couple of reasons. At this time, I'm a mother. So I seen a gap in affordable child care And I also seen a gap in childcare in the area that offered extended hours. So for me, I was getting off of work at 5:30 in the afternoon, and I had 30 minutes to make it to go get my baby because pickup time was at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
If you got there after 6 o'clock, you had to pay. I think it was like $1 a minute that you were
You
late.
gonna charge me to hold my baby?
They were charging me to hold my baby.
Wow.
Well, it came to a point where I was paying those dollars pretty often because you run into traffic or sometimes you don't get off right at 5:30. So I'm like, I gotta solve this, not just for me, but for other mothers that are in this space. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start a childcare center. So I had a relationship with somebody who had previously owned a childcare center, and she shut her childcare center down because she didn't know the business side. Amazing teacher, amazing at educating, amazing at providing a comfortable space for kids, but she didn't know the business. So I said, I know the business. You know the childcare. Let's come together and create an amazing platform. And that's what we did. So it allowed me to still be the working entrepreneur, working for Wells Fargo. And then she ran the day-to-day functions of the child care center. But I opened my doors and I had 2 kids. So I opened the doors, had 2 kids, but the state still required me to have the maximum amount of employees, which was 5 employees. So I got 2 kids, 5 employees. So now I'm a struggling working entrepreneur. And so now we get into the space of what can I do to make this work and how can I grow this business without continuing to break my bank and still fulfilling a vision of just creating a safe space for kids, affordable platform for mothers. And that's kind of how we got into the child care center.
There's so much there that I want to dive into. You know, and I'm sure you see it too, even I'm sure whether it be with your students or your clients, especially in the social media age, everyone says, I want to quit my 9 to 5 so I could start my own business and work for myself. But it's like when you start a business, you go from working 9 to 5 and now you're working 9 to 9, just around the clock. Do you remember the early days? Like you said, you open the doors, you only have 2 kids to start out, right? Bills still got to get paid. Rent still due, right? Employees got to get taken care of. What did the early days of the child care center look like? Like, could you paint that picture for us?
Sure, absolutely. So my 9 to 5 was paying for my LLC. I say that all the time. If it wasn't for my job, I wouldn't have been able to have a child care center because I was having to take the money that I was making and reinvest it back into the business. But I was getting off of work so I went from getting off of work, going to run to get my baby, hurrying up to go get my baby, to getting off of work. Now I'm going to have to go work another job.
Right.
So I was leaving Wells Fargo, going to work at the daycare, staying over at the daycare, making sure things were good. But now I am working 24/7 because now I'm trying to figure out how to grow this business. Now I'm hitting the ground running. I'm doing marketing, foot marketing, and going to different stores, posting flyers, and I'm running crazy trying to figure out just how I can make this business and this brand grow, and just trying to figure out how to make the best connections. But full transparency, it was a lot. And there were several moments where I felt like giving up because it's like, do I really need this?
Yeah.
Is this really what I want to do? There was a situation where I'm literally sitting in the car. I just got paid from Wells Fargo, and I'm looking at the direct deposit. And I have to decide in this moment, am I going to take this money and am I going to pay my mortgage payment on my house that I just bought, or am I going to make payroll? And in that moment, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I created this platform. I created this space. I created this business to provide an opportunity for my baby, to spend more time with my baby. So, to be in a better position financially. And now it's potentially causing me hardship, could potentially cause me hardship in my home. So I got to figure something out. I got to do something. So at that moment, I'm like, wait a minute, I got to lock in. What can I do? What steps can I take? What actions can I put in place so that I don't have to be in this position anymore?
Why in that moment? Because every entrepreneur comes to that fork in the road, not one time, a lot of times, multiple times, because business, it ebbs and it flows. A lot of people in that very same situation would have probably looked at, all right, I gotta figure out if I could pay my mortgage or take care of payroll, and said, like, you know what, this probably isn't for me. Like, let me just go back to Wells Fargo, kick my feet up, and we just gonna try this thing again in a couple of years. What was the motivating factor for you in that moment in time to keep going instead of just tucking your tail in between your legs and saying like, you know what, we're going to close up shop. I'm done.
You always got to go back to that why. Like, why did you do it? Why did you start it? And for me, walking into the space and seeing the impact that not just me, but my staff and my team that we were making in the community was the drive. So at this point, we got a couple more kids. We have, some connections that I've made, and people are bringing their kids to the child care center. But I'm watching my team develop these relationships. I'm watching parents come to me and say, hey, my kid was nonverbal before they came here, and now they're speaking, or now they know how to sign, or, hey, Miss Danielle just potty trained my baby. So using those, seeing the impact that we were making and remembering why I started and giving parents an opportunity to have affordable childcare was really, really what the drive of Kids at Work. So I think that was a huge thing that just kept me going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. What did that season of your business teach you about entrepreneurship?
That particular season was just entrepreneurship it's not for everybody. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Are there some things that I would change in my journey? Absolutely. But entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I definitely think in that season, I wish I would have kind of gravitated to a mentor. Probably early on, it would have saved me a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of heartache. Definitely think in that season, I wish I would have just not been, stubborn and in my ways. I thought I knew it all because I was in the finance space, right? I teach business owners. I help business owners come in the bank and get access to money. I know about LLCs. I know about how to get funding. I know these things, but I really didn't really know how to run and operate a business. So I wish I would have made those connections early on and not being so stubborn and stuck in my ways and collaborated with somebody or connected with somebody a lot sooner.
I think to your point, another reason why entrepreneurship is so difficult is because you're never just wearing the hat of entrepreneur, right? Like in your case, you weren't just entrepreneur and, trying to balance working at Wells. You also have to be mom. What were those conversations like? How old was your daughter around that time?
Around that time, she's 5, 6.
So she's young enough to where she's still innocent, but old enough to where it's like she can kind of maybe start putting pieces together.
Absolutely.
Were there conversations that you're having with her during that time? Because I'm sure there's some nights she see you come home like, hey, mom don't look too good. She looked like she's exhausted, right? What were the conversations like with her?
I remember a conversation when she made a statement. We were having a conversation and about what she wanted to do when she got older, and she said, I don't want to own a daycare. And so for me as a parent, I'm thinking this is something that my kid can have later on down the line. I'm setting this up for her. She can see it. And she's like, I don't want to have a daycare. And I'm like, wait, why? And she's like, it's too much work. And we don't get home until late. And I'm like, wait. I started this so I could spend some more time with my baby. I started this so, I don't have to have those late nights where we're getting off of work, coming home or grabbing fast food and coming home doing homework and then going to bed. So for me, that was a big shift or a big pivot that I had to make because I don't want to be the mom that spends so much time trying to build a brand that I forget the impact that I have to make with my baby. So she's definitely an entrepreneur. She definitely has the entrepreneur drive. But it was a huge pivot for me just knowing that I got to make this work and I got to make sure I have that balance for both.
Was that ever a concern? Because like you said, entrepreneurship is a very seasonal space to be in, right? You're constantly, there's always, like one season, like, okay, we're having, multiple 6-figure months and everything is great. Life is good. I'm in Jamaica. Stripe deposits are coming in. Next month, it's like, hey, we may not be able to keep the lights on this month. Like this is the money is not money, and you see the effect that it's having on your relationship with your daughter and just how she's viewing you, and it's taken away from the time you're able to spend with her and just what that is. Thinking back to that moment where you're roughing it out, navigating through the season, did that put any added pressure on you of like, I have to make this work in X amount of time because there's no way I can allow my baby to keep seeing me like this?
Absolutely. It's, now we got to go, we have to make this work, but now we have to put other pieces in place to where I'm not all in on the business. So I shouldn't be owning the business. I shouldn't be working the business. I shouldn't be, janitorial service. I'm there on the weekends cleaning up everything. Every extra moment that I had, I was spending in the child care center and trying to make the business and the brand grow instead of, making sure that I have pieces and things in place to make the business and the brand operate. So definitely, there were so many moments where we had up and down processes, or up and down in payments and enrollments. So December, January, we might see 40, 50 kids, and then come summertime, we might have 10 kids because people are taking their kids out and going on holidays and vacations. So now it's like, oh, what do we do? So now I'm in that back in that scared mode, and I'm trying to figure it out. But there were so many moments where I just wanted to be like, wait a minute.
Hey, business owners, what if I told you that for just 90 cents a day, you could get access to $45,000 in business funding? I just launched my Credit Mastery community, where inside you're going to be getting exclusive access to our in-depth training program worth tens of thousands of dollars that's going to teach you the exact strategies you need on how to restore your credit and on how to properly structure your business. You're also going to be getting access to a financial consultant with over a decade of experience in the funding space that's going to be working with you to reach your financial goals in half the time it would take if you were to do it on your own. And we're going to be providing you 2 coaching calls a week where we're going to teach you the exact banks that you need to go to get access to anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 in business funding. This is the same community that helped Pat access $50,000 in funding from Chase, help Alvin get $8,000 in funding from Amex, help Matt boost his credit score by over 150 points, and help Donna delete a bankruptcy from her credit report. So if you're interested, click the link above or below the video to join now, and we'll see you on the other side of success. Let's go, family.
So how do we go from, Jaquinta Prim, business banker, to Jaquinta Prim, childcare center owner? Where does Coach K now come into picture when we talk about the business grant expert? How does that happen?
Good question. So, in the child care center, I told you I'm a broke entrepreneur, right? So I've invested well over 6 figures into the child care center.
Yep.
Emptied out my savings account, made a ton of mistakes, and even went to Wells Fargo, tried to get a loan, and they declined me. I'm like, I work here.
That's crazy.
I work here. You can just take it out of my paycheck, right? Yeah. They're like, nah, you got a 401k for that. I'm like, nah, okay. So, but now I turn to grants. Had heard about grants before, but there was a lady that worked for the state, and she came by and said, hey, you qualify for grants. And I'm like, nah, I'm not a grant writer. I can't do that. I don't have time. And there was a particular grant. It was a foundation grant. And I spent about 30 minutes applying for this grant. And that grant was $500. Okay. Right? So I'm like, I get the grant. I'm like, wait a minute. It took me 30 minutes and I got $500. Okay, I can do this. So I started writing grants, and I started getting grants for my business. Well, that turned into, now I'm helping other people. So I'm helping other people, I'm coaching other people, and now other people around me, they want to start companies, they want to start businesses. And, but not only that, I'm educating people about how to go into the banks and get money, because this is what I'm doing every day anyway. Right. So it just turned into, wait a minute, this is a business.
Right.
Now I can actually help and coach other people. So there was a moment when I was in Miami on a girls trip, and we were sitting down, and I picked up the tab. I was like, wait, anybody want to ask me a business question real quick? I'm joking. Right. I'm like, anybody want to ask me a business question real quick so I can write this off on my taxes? So we're all laughing. But that turned into like a 2-hour conversation, because everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur. Everybody had a question. Some people took the information and applied it, and some people are doing really well now. But it's like, wait a minute, I really got something here. So it turned into, now I started hosting free classes. I started hosting seminars, and I had a rental property, and it was vacant. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to host a class in the living room of this rental property just to see what happens. And I had about 50 people show up, and I started teaching them about business funding and business credit. And it just kind of went and spiraled from there.
And it took off. Was there any fear? So we understand how Coach K comes about. Was there any fear in that? Because essentially, you this is now your second time pivoting, right? You pivot from Wells Fargo to the Child Care Center, and then you pivot from the Child Care Center to now, okay, I'm all in on business grants. Was there ever any concern there about like, okay, I don't know if I'm jumping in this thing a little too soon, and maybe there's more layers to it that I'm not privy to. I don't want to just stop focusing on the childcare center and then go all in on this. Or did you know in your heart of hearts, like, no, I'm convicted. This is it. I got to move forward. I'm all in on this.
There was a lot of fear, but I still knew in my heart that the information that I was giving out was so valuable that people needed to hear it. Now, me getting to the people was that fear piece because it's now I have to be on social media. Now I have to show a little bit of me. I'm very private. So now I have to show a little bit of my personal life. Now I have to, sometimes I can be a little introverted. I like to be at home. So now I have to go out in public and I have to speak. So I think that was the fear piece. I don't think it was fear of, if my message was powerful or if people actually needed the information or if this is what I should be doing. I love what I do. And I think part of what I was doing at Wells Fargo was this anyway, because people would come in and they want a savings account. I'm like, no, let me educate you on what you really need. So I definitely think there was fear in it, but it's always been part of my journey for sure.
So let's talk a little bit now to your expertise, which is business grants and business funding, and start to unpack that for the audience. Just starting about like the foundational understanding of what business grants are and how they work. Could you break down for the audience how exactly do grants work? Because for me, I'm more so on the business credit side, and I understand grants is just like, oh, it's free money. But I don't know if it's a lot more to it with that, which when it comes to like, okay, why are organizations giving out this free money? How does it benefit them? What are all the different parts that go into it? Can you start diving into that?
Good question. So it is free money. It's debt-free funding. But when we think free money, we think, hey, we can just go get $100,000 and do whatever it is we want to do with it. Companies and organizations are giving you funding to fulfill a mission. So we are going out and we're answering questions and we're telling these companies and organizations what we plan to do with the funding, how we're going to use the funding to scale and grow, and by using the funding, the impact that we're going to be able to make within our industry or within our community. So when we take that, go apply for these grants, they give us money in return to reinvest back into our business. They're not giving us $100,000 to go to Dubai or go shopping, but they're giving us $100,000 or more to reinvest back into our business to help our business and our brand grow. So that's what grant funding is. We're knocking on the doors of these corporations and organizations and telling them the impact that we plan to make within our industry and in our community and why they should give us funding and capital to make it happen.
So it's strictly because the biggest question I've always been a bit apprehensive to grants because the first thing I think to myself is like, all right, what's the catch? There's no way you about to give me $20,000, $30,000 because I filled out an application and then that's it. There's no extra incentivization for these organizations. Simply just, hey, we want to be able to give back to you guys as aspiring entrepreneurs, and that's it.
Well, here's the thing. It's a tax write-off for them.
Okay. I see. There you go. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's, there are some companies like Chick-fil-A, they give back $5 million a year, but, and they give back to people who are making an inspiration, and they do this big giveaway, and it's content, and they post it on their website. But at the end of the day, it's a tax write-off.
Yeah. Okay, got you. So in us understanding what grants are and how they work, what exactly is the first actionable step that we can take if I'm watching this episode to put myself in a position to go out and start applying for grants?
Yeah, the biggest thing is you have to start investing in your business and investing into your brand first, right? Okay. So we're asking these companies and these organizations to give us 6 figures or more in funding, but we haven't even made the initial investment in registering our business with the Secretary of State. So that would be step number 1, is the foundation of your business. The same when you're talking about business credit and business funding, having the registered business, having the LLC, having the EIN, having the business email address. All of those things are key components to getting access to grant funding as well. So step number 1 would be start having the structure and the foundation of your business in order, registering your business with the Secretary of State. There's startup funding out there available for entrepreneurs, or there's funding available if you do not have an LLC, but there's very few opportunities available. So by having that structure, that foundation in order, you get access to $1 billion platform with grant opportunities available.
I've heard you talk about a strategy that I also wanted to unpack when it comes to putting ourselves in position to get funded with grants. REAL, so it spells out real.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there are certain grants that ask you questions, right? So there's this myth out there that you have to have a grant proposal to apply for grants. Well, there are certain grants that only ask you for a question. Some grants may say, hey, what are you going to do with the funding? So I created this strategy, and I tell entrepreneurs, just keep it real. right? So I break it down. R is making sure that you are relatable to the investor. So anytime you're applying for a grant, there's going to be a paragraph that tells you about the person that's giving the funding and who they want to give the funding to. Take time to read that because they're giving you insights on who they want to fund. So always make sure you're relatable to the investor. E, you have to educate the investor. So most of the time we make the assumption of assuming that the investor should know, hey, I have a daycare center. They know what a daycare center is. Or, oh, I have a podcast. They know what a podcast is. You have to educate them on what makes your podcast unique or what makes your business unique. So educate them about your business and your brand and why you are the most deserving of the opportunity that's out there. A, you have to have an action plan. So a lot of times we say, I need $100,000 for my business. Well, what's your action plan? What are you going to do with the $100,000 when you receive it? What's your budget look like? You know, what steps are you going to take to use this $100,000 and how is this $100,000 going to help your business and your brand grow? And L is simply just make sure the companies love your business and love your brand. This means having the brand appearance in order, making sure that they can look you up online and they can see that everything you said on the application aligns with what you have aligns with what you have on social media as well. So just simply keeping it real. We have people who are winning thousands and thousands of dollars in grants just by using that simple strategy.
What is you mentioned that you've seen individuals win thousands of thousands. What's the largest grant to date that you've seen someone win under either going through your program or just from the outside looking in through the business grant process? So
what I love about grants is that there's no cap on the amount of grants that you can receive. So you can go get $1 million in grants and you could go back and get another $1 million in grants. So Megan is at $1.7 million that she's received in grants.
Give me a second. You can't say a number like that and then hold on. Say it again.
Megan has received $1.7 million in funding. Now, there's been several grants that she's received. She's received a $120,000 grant. She's received a $200,000 grant. She received a $200,000 grant to do a documentary. So she's received several grants to get a total of the $1.7 million that she needed to fulfill a mission. We have Miss Emma, who's received 2 grants for $500,000, but she's also received grants for $2,000. So there's so many different components to it. Both are inside of my business and grant community. But I've seen people win grants for $500. I've seen people win grants for $500,000. It just depends on the opportunity and what's out there and what's available.
Now, what is the approval percentage or ratio? I'm trying to find the right word to say it, because one of the things I've seen you talk about, especially on just following you on social, is like you're applying, you in your level in this space, you're applying for grants every day.
Every single day.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm curious to know, if you're applying for X amount of grants, there's a 10% chance, 20% chance you're going to get approved for X amount, and that's why we have to go ahead and be applying every day?
Yep. Entrepreneurs who apply for 20 to 30 grants have a 99% success rate of getting funding.
Okay.
So this is why I say apply for 1 grant every day, because now we always have something in the pipeline. So there are some months I wake up to 2 or 3 grants that I got approved for. There are some months that I don't wake up to any, right? But I always have something that's coming in. Now, I don't overlook opportunities. If there's a grant that's $500, I'm applying for that $500 grant because I can use that $500 for ads or marketing or something. If there's a grant for $1 million, I'm applying for that $1 million grant. I don't get every grant that I apply for, but I always have something in the pipeline and I'm always applying for opportunities.
Are grants similar to business credit, where if you apply for one and you get denied for whatever reason, the person who's giving the grant gives you an explanation as to why? And if so, what are some of the most common reasons you see people get denied for grants that they may be applying for?
Good question. So there are some situations where the grantor will not automatically provide feedback, but you can call in and request feedback, or you can send an email and request feedback. Most people don't do that. And so they miss out on opportunities. Now, I recently just gave out a grant. I give out a grant every quarter. It's called the Legacy Grant. I give out a $2,500 grant. One of the biggest mistakes that I see when people apply for this grant is they just don't take it serious. So if I pull up the spreadsheet right now and it asks one question, what are you going to use this grant for? People are saying startup, inventory, just because I need it, This is a competition.
Right.
You have to make your business and your brand stand out from everyone else that's applying for this grant opportunity. So you have to capture my attention. You have to make me want to read it. When I'm going through this and I'm seeing seeing the questions or seeing the answers, I can almost go through and kind of pinpoint who I'm going to pick just by the amount of words. And that's scary. Whether the grant is $2,500 or $1 million, you got to give this application your all. And you have to make your business and your brand stand apart from everyone else that's applying. So that's why I created the real strategy, so people know that these are the key things that you need to touch on. One answer or one word is not enough to get you access to any amount of capital for a grantor to take you serious. So that's the biggest mistake that people make, is they just don't take it serious.
Now, let's say I find out about Coach K after I then applied for 10, 20, 30 grants and got denial after denial. Is it smart for me to now go back? Because there are certain businesses and organizations, like, where they'll have grants they do on a periodic basis, whether it's quarterly, monthly, yearly. If I go to someone who's giving a grant and I get denied, does it make sense for me to now go back, or is it just like, nope, wash your hands of that grantor, we got to go on to the next one?
No, so you definitely should be applying for the same grant over and over and over again.
Even if you get denied?
Even if you get declined.
Hey.
Even if you get declined.
Okay.
And so even if I would go to the grantor and ask for feedback. If they don't give feedback, some grantors don't allow for, or don't have the capacity to give feedback, and that's okay. But change your answer, go back and look. They always tell you who received the grant. So I would go back and see who received the grant over me, and kind of figure out, hey, maybe this is what they were looking for, or this is who they want to invest in. I might tweak my answer a little bit to align with the grantor. But I would apply for the same grant over and over and over again if the opportunity comes open. Some grants they give out every quarter. Some grants they give out every year. I have a calendar or a spreadsheet of grants, and I just update it every single year, because most of the time grantors are giving out the same grant every year. So if we don't win it this time, we just go in, change the date, and apply for it next year. There's a company called Skip. They give out a grant every Tuesday and every Friday. So we're in the community, people in my community, we're applying for this grant every Tuesday and every Friday. If we don't get it on Tuesday, we're applying for it again on Wednesday so we can receive it on Friday. And we're just redoing the application over and over and over again.
And you said the name of it is SKIP?
Hello Skip, HELLOSKIP.
Interesting. Very, very. This is good. Okay, I'm learning. This is really good. Okay. So you mentioned how for a lot of these organizations who are giving out the grants, it's a tax write-off for them. For us who are the grantees, who's receiving the grant funding, how do taxes work in that regard? Because I'm sure that's a very popular question that most people are going to have. Is this money where I get it and the $10,000 is mine, or is it really $5,000 because I got to give half of it to Uncle Sam?
Good question. So this is income for your business.
Okay, yeah.
So, but wait a minute.
Okay,
wait a minute.
I'm with you.
It's income for your business, so it can be taxed. However, we're using it to reinvest back into our business, right? So because we are using the money to reinvest back into our business, you get you a good CPA, you get you somebody who knows what they're doing. Again, I have people who have received millions of dollars in grant funding, and they are not yelling at me yet, I promise. So, but when you receive a grant funding and you do your budget breakdown, you always can put that in your budget breakdown that, hey, a percentage of this, I have to make sure that I put a little bit of this up, for taxes or other expenses that might be associated with the business.
This is good, Coach K. This is good. This is very, very... Okay, so you mentioned Hello Skip. What are some of the other different resources that people who are looking to get, this debt-free funding for this business can look into that you would recommend?
One of my favorite platforms is GrantWatch.
Okay.
So GrantWatch is probably one of the most user-friendly platforms. I really like this platform because it not only does it break it down by state, it breaks it down by industry as well. Now, I really don't like for people to look for grants for their industry because you're putting yourself in a bubble.
Okay.
But this platform, it has state-specific grants, industry-specific grants, and it has so many other opportunities that are on there available for you. So whether you're a nonprofit, small business, they even have grants for individuals, but they post so many opportunities. Right now, they have over $1 billion in grants that are on their page right now. Yep, over $1 billion. So GrantWatch is one of the amazing and user-friendly platforms.
I love that. One of the things I've been running into a lot more as of late, I'm meeting business owners that are not just for-profit business owners, but individuals who are non-for-profit owners as well. Is the process to get access to grant funding for someone like myself who has a for-profit company different than what it is for someone who has a non-for-profit?
Good question. So I actually always encourage entrepreneurs, especially if you have a mission to give back or make an impact, to have a for-profit and a nonprofit. So what I did was I have my childcare center, which is a for-profit. And of course, we want all the money, right? We want everything.
Right.
But as I'm growing and as my business expands, and especially as I got into the grant process, I realized that there was a larger opportunity for nonprofits. Now, you can get grant funding whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, but I was missing out on a lot of opportunities by not being a nonprofit. So I started a nonprofit as well. So my for-profit company is my childcare center. My nonprofit company is the curriculum that's associated with my nonprofit center. So my for-profit and my nonprofit work together, or we collaborate to fulfill a mission, and that's to make an impact in our community. So now when we're applying for a grant, if it says that it wants to be that you have to be a for-profit company, I have a for-profit. If it says that you have to be a nonprofit, I have a nonprofit. You can do this same thing in anything that you do. You have a podcast, right?
ma'am.
But your podcast educates.
Yes, ma'am.
So your podcast can be the for-profit. The education piece of your podcast can be the nonprofit. So now we're able to go after grant funding for your podcast, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit.
No, I'm genuinely taking. Okay, so is the process to create a nonprofit any different than what it is? Because with a for-profit company, you go to your Secretary of State. Hey, I'm an LLC. They give you the articles of organization. That's it. Is it the same exact process for a nonprofit?
Yes and no. So you do still have to register your business with the Secretary of State, but there are a couple of other key components. You also have to have a board, and that's a couple of things that people don't like, or that's one of the things that people don't really like about a nonprofit, because now you have to have a board of at least 3 other people who make decisions or help you make
Interesting, okay.
decisions. But this could work in your benefit, right? And I'll explain that in just a moment. You also have to go through a tax exempt status. So you have to go to the IRS and say, hey, I want to be tax exempt as well. So this allows that grant funding that you receive to be tax exempt, and you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But having a board, especially if you get a board of people who don't look like you or who might not share the same vision, but have different drives. So now I'm a woman. So if there's a grant out there that says they want to fund a woman entrepreneur, we can apply for that grant. If there's a grant that says, hey, we only want to fund men, we can apply for that grant. There's a grant that says, hey, we only want to fund veterans, and we have a veteran on our board. Now we can apply for the grant. So having a board of people who have different mixes and different genders and different races definitely can work in your benefit as well.
Wow. That is a really, really good strategy. Okay. One of the things I've heard you talk about when it comes to putting ourselves in prime position to get access to grant funding is the importance of having a business plan. We talked about the real strategy and just how we're positioning ourselves in the eyes of the grantors, the people who are giving the grants. Most business owners don't have a business plan and may be looking to go out and get funding and get this debt-free funding, and don't understand the importance of how having one can put them in position to not only get approved, but, having lots of success when it comes to this process. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so your business plan is your roadmap to success, right? So your business plan is going to outline your mission. It's going to outline your vision. It's going to outline your budget. It's going to outline exactly what you plan to do with the fund. It's really the real strategy just kind of broke down. And a solid business plan can be used as a grant proposal. So people are afraid of grants or intimidated by grants because of the grant proposal piece. But if you just put your vision down on paper and create this business plan, now you have the grant proposal and you're 10 steps ahead of your competition. And you can use that as a leverage or opportunity to apply for grants. So the business plan is just going to tell the grantors exactly how you plan to use the funding to help your business and your brand grow.
How hard is it? A complex process in terms of putting a business plan together, or is it something?
Use AI. Use and leverage AI to use your business plan. So you go in, you feed AI as much information as possible. I talk to my AI. I don't even write it. I just talk to it and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Give it a paragraph or two about what I want to make happen and say, hey, create me a business plan. And it gives it to me in seconds. Now, I tell people you have to use AI as like it's an employee in your business, right? So you got to go in, you got to read over it, you got to monitor it and make sure it's what you
100%.
want. But go in and tweak that and make it what you need, and that's definitely more than enough.
It's funny that you mention AI because, I'm sure you see in the age that we live in right now, ChatGPT is everything, right? People are using it in so many different facets and ways for their business. Are there other ways in this grant funding process that we can leverage artificial intelligence to put ourselves in position to get approved for more grants?
Absolutely. So you have to be cautious with
Okay.
using AI with grants, right? AI is and one of the biggest mistakes I think people make with AI is they want it to do all of the work for them. They go to it and say, hey, write this for me. And they want it to do everything.
Yep.
But you have to train it, right?
Yep.
It's a tool you have to train, you have to educate it, you have to teach it what you need. And then once it gets in the flow, it learns your language and learns your tone, then it can be very beneficial, and it can help you get access to grant funding. We have somebody, Mr. Birch, who just received a $150,000 grant, and he used AI to leverage. And
Did
get
he?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
So you can definitely use AI to write, find, and apply for grants. You just have to educate it on exactly what to do. You have to go in and you have to tweak it and make sure it's not using those fluff words. But grantors have a feature called Zero Chat GPT. So if you're using too much of AI, they can plug your answer in and it can tell them what part of your answer is used or AI or not. So it can potentially disqualify you from getting the grant. So this is why I say you have to teach AI your tone. You have to feed it as much information as possible. But we have people who are getting access to thousands of dollars in grant funding by leveraging AI and using it the correct way.
In doing a deeper dive into the space, another term I've heard thrown around a couple of times is and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, a grant writer. What is a grant writer, and what role do they play in this grant process?
Good question. So a grant writer is someone who can assist you in your business in getting access to grant funding. There are a ton of grant writers out there available. I have a mentorship program where I teach entrepreneurs how to be certified grant writers and how to help others get access to grant funding. Now, a grant writer is someone who, and it's definitely an investment into your business. So a good grant writer is going to come in. They're going to charge you anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to go out and find grants for you, service grants, write the grants for you, and help you get access to the opportunities. However, grants are not guaranteed. There's no point or no one who can assist you and tell you, I can guarantee you a grant.
Right.
I've been doing this. Yeah, it just doesn't work that way, right?
No.
So this is why I'm in the education space. So I have to educate you first before I even write a grant for you. I have to teach you about what grants are. I have to show you what you need in place in order to qualify for the grants. I have to show you some of the smaller opportunities because your grant writer shouldn't be going after a $2,500 grant. Your grant writer should be searching and going after those 6 figures and those 7-figure grants for you. If I'm making a $10,000 investment, you need to be making sure I'm going to get a good return on my investment.
100%.
So a grant writer is definitely a great strategy to have, but let's make us some money first. Let me get you some money first before I encourage you to make a $10,000 investment.
If I was, hypothetically speaking, interested in becoming a grant writer, is that a strenuous process? What does that process look like?
Not necessarily. It's learning the strategy. So you definitely want to learn the strategy. You want to educate yourself about what grants are. You want to educate yourself on how to find the grants and how to find the opportunities. There are certification processes and programs that you go through. Our program is a 12-week program. You go through it. I teach you everything that I know, and get you. You get hands-on coaching from me. You get one-on-one mentorship from me, and we just do a full graduation and help you. We give you a business in the box, so you get a go high level. You get
I love it.
funnels. You get communication, emails, marketing, and we just teach you the full strategy of building a brand and being a certified grant writer.
I love it. If we wanted to give audience members a bit of a kickstart, because they're going to go out, they need to do their own homework. We're not going to sit here and give them all the cheat codes. But if we wanted to give them a little bit of a kickstart, you did mention a resource, which was Hello Skip, if I remember correctly. If you wanted to refer one grant, whether it was a grant that was specifically for Black women or a grant that was specifically for Black men, just individuals that may be in certain industries that may be watching, do you have any that you could recommend right now?
Absolutely. Only one?
I mean, if you want to get more, you can get more. I'm not going to stop you, but
so
yeah.
I always encourage, especially if you're just starting, the Legacy Grant, which is a grant sponsored by me. It's an amazing grant, $2,500. The Greatness Grant is sponsored by Nehemiah Davis. Is also a $2,500 grant. These are very startup friendly. You can actually use those to start your business. You can use those to fund your business, and it's only going to ask you one question. So it's only going to take you a couple of minutes to do.
One question.
One question.
If y'all don't go get this money, y'all ain't serious.
One question. There's also a grant called the Galaxy Grant. This one is for women and minority entrepreneurs.
Okay.
This one asks no questions. So this one is more of a giveaway or a sweepstakes, but it's still a grant. They still label it as a grant. You go in, you go to galaxyofthestars.com. You put your information in every month every quarter they give out a grant. So that's 3. Hello Skip is another one. Hello Skip gives out a $1,000 grant every Tuesday and every Friday, but every month they give out a $10,000 grant. Right now, UPS has a $35,000 grant. So all of these companies and corporations that we think about, they all give out grants. UPS, FedEx, what equipment do we have? Sony,
I think I even saw that like
Samsung.
Chick-fil-A has a grant.
Chick-fil-A, they just gave out some a grant to someone in San Francisco, $325,000, and they only had to tell them how they were being an inspiration.
That's it.
That's it. You had to tell them how you were being an inspiration, and they received $325,000.
This is a very interesting space. I've always, like I said, I've only applied for a grant one time in my life. And that was New York. I think New York State was giving out a grant. This was like a year or two removed after like COVID. And I actually got approved for like around $20,000.
Nice.
Yeah. And at the time, I was still skeptical. Mind you, I'm in the credit space. I'm like, there's no way that this is real. There has to be a loophole. No, just give your information. A lot of the process was similar to what you're talking about, where it's just they just want to know about your business. What are you going to do with the money, right? And then from there, now that I got approved, I was able to help a friend of mine also get approved as well, and it was a very straightforward process. So there's a lot of there's a lot of truth to everything that you're breaking down here in terms of just the step by step and how black and white this thing could be. Why aren't more people applying for grants?
People are just not. I think a lot of times we are intimidated about things that we're not educated on, which is why I educate. It's why I show up so much so people know that this is real. But there are a lot of questions and concerns when it comes to grant money. Is this real? Why does this company want to give me? Why do they want to invest into my business? Why would a company give me $1 million?
Right.
You know. So it's just that education piece. People are just not educated on it, and people are not talking about it enough. You know, especially our community. Yeah. Grants are not new. They've been around forever, and they're not going anywhere. And I think people are just not. There are other races who have grant parties. Like they literally come together and they write proposals or they answer grant questions based off their strengths. So I might be good at a budget breakdown. You might be good at mission statements, and Paul over here might be good at executive summary. So now we're going through and we're helping each other get access to grant funding, and we're doing it all together. It's just our community. We're just not educated on it.
38%. That's the amount of entrepreneurs that are struggling to get their business funded because their personal credit isn't where it needs to be. Now, you can look into alternatives like corporate credit cards and vendor accounts, but the truth is the easiest way to get access to 5 to 6 figures in funding is to have good personal credit. As an entrepreneur, the stress of trying to build a successful business is already enough as is. So why work harder than you need to when you can simplify the funding process by getting your credit restored? My company, Take Off Financial, has served hundreds of entrepreneurs just like you by helping them avoid the pain of getting denied for business funding by restoring their personal credit, and we want you to be the next one. So click the link above or below this video to secure your free consultation, and let's put you in position to get you funding that your business needs.
Your background before you got into grants was mainly in the credit and the business credit space. Now, with your expertise being more so on the grant side, when you're speaking with your students, is it business grants or business credit, or is it business credit and business grants?
And I think entrepreneurs should leverage both opportunities because grants take time, right? So grants are not an overnight process. We're not going to get grant funding tomorrow. No, we've had some people come in our community and get grants within a couple of weeks or a couple of months. But most of the time, about 50 or 60% of the people, it takes them a little bit of time to get access to grant funding, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, you need money now. So let's fix our personal credit, make sure we have a good, solid personal credit profile, go after some business funding and business credit opportunities while we get access to some of this grant funding as well. Now, when this grant funding comes in, we can always write into our budget, hey, we had to make an investment and we had to use, $20,000 to start our business. So we're going to pay off that $20,000 and use some of that grant funding to pay down any debt that we might have, but use and leverage all opportunities that are available for you as a business owner. So we teach business credit and business funding.
When it comes to the business credit side, when it comes to how you're educating, where do you stand when it comes to, because I'm sure you know there's business credit you can get by way of leveraging your personal credit, and then there's business credit you can get by way of leveraging just strictly your EIN. Is that also like it's not one or the other, it's and, or are you typically educating and leaning more towards one side?
I teach both.
Okay.
I educate on both because I understand, and I've definitely been in the space of making some mistakes on my personal credit side.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, while we work on your personal credit and while we fix your personal credit, let's go out to some of this EIN only funding, get some of these retail store cards, the Sam's card that we can get, and use and leverage that while we fix our personal credit, and then go after some of the other business strategies that are out there. So I am all about teaching and educating on all aspects that will help us reach the goal and get access to the funding.
Through this conversation we've been having, one of the words and just themes that have been reoccurring here is just education and teaching. Education and teaching, empowering individuals with having the information they need around funding and financial literacy and beyond. I'm curious for you at this point, life for you right now, I'm sure looks a lot different than what it did 15 plus years ago when we think about the journey from Wells and then to the child care center and to where you are now. For where you are in relation to where you're working towards, what would you say is your North Star? Like what is the why that you have now in terms of what you're working towards, the big picture goal that you have?
Yeah, for me, again, the education piece and that teaching piece is huge for me because nobody taught me. And I have definitely been in a space where I made a lot of mistakes. And if I would have had somebody, that accountability or that support or that mentor, it would have saved me a lot of time and it would have saved me a lot of money. So I have created the space, my community, the business and grant community, to be that support system, to be that space. And I love growing the community and making the impact. But the North Star for me is to just grow in this platform and continue to educate and continue to teach entrepreneurs, and seeing the impact and the change that grant funding makes. Grant funding can literally change your life.
Come on now.
It literally can change your life. Imagine getting $100,000 or $1 million and being able to make an impact, not just for you, but for the people around you. And imagine, now I got $1 million in grant funding, and then I teach my best friend how to get $1 million in funding. And then she teaches her husband how to get $1 million in funding. And the impact that it makes for everybody around you. And that's the biggest impact for me. That's what keeps me going, is because I'm seeing it change lives. It changed mine. I knew that. I mean, there's nothing. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would be like, oh, I'm going to work for Wells Fargo until I'm 50. I'm going to retire from Wells Fargo. I have a video of me saying, I'm going to retire. I'm going to retire by 40. That's what I would always say. But I was convinced that I was going to retire for Wells Fargo. I knew that my mom worked for Nissan. I was 1,000% sure she was going to work for Nissan until she was about 65 years old. My mom just retired. I just retired my mom. Not from coaching, but because I've been able to leverage an opportunity and leverage grant funding to grow and scale my business and be able to provide an opportunity for her as well. Grant funding will change your life.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. As we close, let the individuals know, of course, where they can find you, what you have going on, and how they can stay connected with you.
I love it. So thank you guys for having me. But I am Coach K on all social media platforms. It's Coach K, ITSS Coach K. I also have an amazing community for entrepreneurs teaching you how to grow, scale, and leverage your business. It's businessandgrantcommunity.com. Super excited to work with you and teach you how to get access to this funding and capital to grow your business.
There you go. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, what are you doing? Take a second, take a minute, take an hour out of your day right here, right now to go ahead, hit the like button, show the episode some love, and tell a friend to come back and rewatch it again. As always, my name is Marvin Francois. That's Coach K. You guys have been good. We've been great. This has been amazing. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Peace.